Sometime before the end of this month, your pension trustees may gain the legal power to move your defined contribution pension into a completely different type of scheme without asking you first, not as a proposal, not as something being considered. As of the 31st of July 2026, it becomes lawful. And before you close this video, there is one misunderstanding I want to get out of the way immediately. Because the moment people hear pension transfer without consent, two reactions kick in. Some people think that sounds dangerous, that sounds like a scam, someone is raiding my pot. Others think I'm years from retirement, this won't touch me. Both of those reactions lead to the same outcome. Walking away from something you actually need to understand. So stay with me for the next 20 minutes, because what this change is, what it is not, who it affects, and what you can do about it are four completely different questions, and most people only hear the headline and miss all four. If this kind of plain English breakdown of what is actually changing in UK pensions is useful to you, subscribe now. That is the only way the next video finds you. To understand what is happening on the 31st of July, you need to understand what a collective defined contribution scheme is, because the transfer without consent only matters if you know what you are being transferred into. Right now, most people in workplace pensions in this country are in an individual defined contribution scheme. You have a pot. That pot belongs to you individually. It grows or shrinks based on how the investments perform. When you retire, you decide what to do with it. Draw it down gradually, buy an annuity, take a lump sum, some combination of all three. The risk of outliving your money sits entirely with you. The risk of bad investment returns sits entirely with you. That is the DC pension most people have been automatically enrolled into since 2012. A collective defined contribution scheme, a CDC scheme, works differently. Instead of individual pots, every member's contributions are pooled into a single collective fund. That fund is invested together. And instead of handing you a pot at retirement, the scheme pays you a target income for life, adjusted annually based on how the scheme's investments perform. You do not have a pot in the traditional sense. You have a share of something collective. The only CDC scheme operating in the UK right now is the Royal Mail Collective Pension Plan, which launched in October 2024. The government is now expanding this model significantly. Regulations coming into force on the 31st of July 2026 will allow unconnected multi-employer CDC schemes to operate for the first time. That means employers who have no connection to each other, no shared corporate group, no common ownership, will be able to pool their employees into a single CDC scheme together. Here is the specific change that arrives on the 31st of July. Under the regulations being laid before Parliament, trustees of defined contribution pension schemes will be permitted to transfer their members into authorized CDC schemes without first asking those members whether they consent. This is not a new concept in pension law. An identical provision already exists for authorized master trusts. Since April 2018, trustees have been able to bulk transfer DC members into an authorized master trust without obtaining individual consent. The 31st of July extension applies that same framework to CDC schemes, provided those CDC schemes have passed the pensions regulators' authorization process. That authorization process is not a formality. It requires the scheme to meet strict governance, financial sustainability, and fitness standards before the regulator will grant it authorized status. The DWP's own consultation response, published in June 2026, confirms the government's rationale. Because these schemes are subject to a robust ongoing regulatory supervision regime, asking for individual member consent for every bulk transfer adds administrative burden without adding meaningful protection. That is the argument in favor. There is a legitimate argument on the other side, and we will come to it. Now, here is the question most people watching this actually want answered. Can your trustees wake up on the 1st of August, decide to move your pot, and just do it? The short answer is no, and the longer answer matters. There are conditions that have to be met before a transfer without consent into a CDC scheme can happen. The first condition is that the receiving CDC scheme must be authorized. Authorization by the pensions regulator is a prerequisite. It is not optional. It is baked into the regulation. If the CDC scheme receiving the transfer has not been through and passed the authorization process, the without consent mechanism simply does not apply. The second condition is the best interest test. Trustees are not given a free pass to move members wherever they choose. They are legally required to assess whether the transfer is in the best interests of the members. That is an existing fiduciary duty. It does not disappear because consent is not required. What the law removes is the administrative step of getting each member's individual agreement. It does not remove the obligation to act in members' interests. The third point, and this is the one that carries real weight for individual members, is that you retain the right to transfer out. Once you have been moved into a CDC scheme, you keep your statutory right to transfer your benefits back out of that scheme until the point at which your benefits crystallize, meaning until you start drawing your income. The DWP confirmed this explicitly in its June 2026 consultation response. That right to transfer out is the most practical protection you have. It means this is not a trap door. If you are transferred into a CDC scheme and you do not want to be there, you can leave. Let me give you a character here because the mechanism can feel abstract. Margaret has been saving into a mid-sized workplace DC scheme for 11 years through her employer. She is 53. She has no plans to retire for at least another decade. Her employer's trustees have been watching the new CDC framework develop, and they decide that an authorized multi-employer CDC scheme opening in early 2027 is the right long-term home for their members. They assess the scheme against the best interests test. They go through the process the DWP guidance requires, and they notify Margaret that her benefits will be transferred. Margaret has not been asked if she agrees, but she has been notified. And if she does not want to be in a CDC scheme, perhaps she has a specific investment strategy she has built up, or she has guaranteed annuity rates attached to her current arrangement, she has the right to transfer her benefits elsewhere before the transfer takes effect. The notification is precisely the moment at which that right becomes important. Which brings us to the piece of this that nobody is talking about clearly enough. There is one category of pension benefit where the without consent route does not apply and where you need to pay the closest attention. If your current DC pension includes any form of guarantee, a guaranteed annuity rate, a with-profits investment option, or a protected pension age that is below the standard minimum, those benefits are excluded from the without consent process. The DWP's own guidance on bulk transfers without consent, updated in June 2026 to reflect the new regulations, makes this explicit. Transfers of DC benefits that include guarantees of this kind remain outside the without consent framework. They can only proceed without consent where trustees have separately taken independent advice from an actuary who is independent from the receiving scheme. This matters because guaranteed annuity rates in particular can be worth a significant amount of money. A guaranteed annuity rate locked into a pension contract from the 1980s or 1990s could guarantee you a retirement income that is substantially higher than anything available in today's open market. If that is sitting inside your current pension arrangement and you are moved into a CDC scheme, that guarantee does not travel with you. The CDC scheme does not offer a guarantee. It offers a target income based on collective investment performance. Those are fundamentally different things. So if you have any reason to believe your current pension might include a guaranteed annuity rate or any other form of protection, this is the moment to check. Not when the notification letter arrives. Now, contact your pension provider and ask directly, does my current arrangement include a guaranteed annuity rate, a protected retirement age, or any with-profits component? One phone call, one question. There is also a category of person for whom this change is straightforwardly positive, and it is important to say that plainly. If you are a younger saver with a small deferred pot at a previous employer, a pot that is sitting there, not being actively managed, accumulating charges with no particular investment strategy behind it, the prospect of being consolidated into a large, professionally governed, authorized CDC scheme is not necessarily a bad outcome. The government's own projections suggest CDC schemes have the potential to deliver meaningfully better retirement outcomes than individual DC pots used to purchase an annuity at retirement. One analysis cited in parliamentary evidence puts the improvement as high as 39% better retirement income for the same level of contributions based on the pooling of longevity and investment risk. The UK Government Actuaries Department has assessed collective pensions as likely to produce higher expected incomes than comparable individual DC outcomes. Those figures come with significant caveats. CDC is new in this country. The Royal Mail scheme only launched in October 2024, and real-world outcomes are not yet proven at scale. But the theoretical case is not fabricated. The consolidation drive behind this change is built on the premise that smaller, fragmented DC schemes are delivering worse outcomes for members than larger, professionally managed collective structures. The without consent mechanism is a tool to accelerate that consolidation. So what should you actually do between now and the 31st of July, and in the period after it? There are 3 things, and none of them require you to panic. The first is to find out whether your current pension includes any guaranteed benefits. As described above, guaranteed annuity rates, protected pension ages below the statutory minimum, with profits arrangements. If your scheme has any of these, they cannot be moved without consent in any case. But knowing that your scheme does or does not have them changes how you read any notification letter that might arrive. Call your pension provider, ask the question, write down the answer. The second is to understand what your notification rights are. The without consent mechanism does not mean you receive no communication. Trustees are required to notify members before proceeding with a bulk transfer. When that notification arrives, whether by post, by email, or through your scheme's online portal, read it. Not because you are necessarily in the wrong place, but because the notification period is the window in which your right to opt out or transfer elsewhere is most clearly available to you. If you receive any communication from your pension scheme mentioning a transfer or a consolidation exercise, treat it as requiring your attention within days, not weeks. The third is to be alert to scammers who will use this moment. Every time there is a genuine change in the pension landscape, fraudsters build a version of it designed to steal your pot. The without consent rule applies to trustees transferring your benefits within the regulated framework. It does not give anyone the right to contact you out of the blue, by phone, by text, by email, and tell you that your pension is being moved and you need to confirm your bank details, your national insurance number, or anything else. Any unsolicited contact about your pension, however official it sounds, should be treated with suspicion. The only communication about a legitimate without consent transfer will come from your existing pension scheme directly through channels you already recognize. If you are in any doubt, call your pension provider on the number printed on your most recent pension statement, not on a number given to you in the message you just received. Here is the thread that runs through all of this. The 31st of July is not the day your pension disappears. It is not the day the government takes your savings. It is the day a legal mechanism comes into force that allows trustees, with regulatory oversight, with a best interests obligation, with the pensions regulator watching, to consolidate smaller DC arrangements into authorized collective schemes without gathering individual signatures. That mechanism already exists for master trusts. It has existed since 2018. Your pension has always been subject to trustee decisions you did not vote on directly. What changes on the 31st of July is the range of destinations available to those trustees when they make decisions about consolidation. Whether that is good for you personally depends on what is currently in your pension, what is guaranteed, what is valuable, and where any transfer would be heading. Those answers are specific to you. The general reassurance that CDC transfers are fine for most people is true, and it is also useless to the individual who had a protected pension age they did not know about until it was gone. Know what you have, read what arrives, act in the window, not after it closes. If you know someone approaching retirement who is saving into a workplace pension, a colleague, a family member, a friend who has never looked closely at what their scheme actually contains, send this to them, not because they need to be worried, because knowing the difference between a standard DC pot and a guaranteed benefit is the kind of knowledge that can cost a significant amount of money if it arrives too late. One share from you could be the reason they make that phone call before the 31st. Subscribe to this channel for plain English coverage of what is genuinely changing in UK pensions, the rules, the dates, the rights you actually have. I will see you in the next one.